Hello, and welcome to the Table and Well podcast. I'm Tennison.
And I'm Ginelle. Thank you for joining us as we discuss topics and give practical tools that help you live, grow, and be in healthy, joy-filled relationship with God, yourself, and others.
For more information and resources, or if you're looking for coaching, connection, and community, visit tableandwell.org. We hope you enjoy this podcast. You are listening to Fingerprints, how God is transforming the relational health of his family. All throughout this series, you will hear transformational stories from everyday people just like you. But what if this transformation isn't just for them? What if it's for you too? I want to let you know that it is for you as well. And that's why we've created Relational Collabs, intentional spaces where this type of transformation becomes real. These are small, safe communities where you will practice the skills that will help you grow and build joy, rebuild your trust, enable you to stay present in the middle of hard moments, help you deeply connect to God, yourself, and others, and experience the authentic connection that your heart was designed for. See, this is more than just another class or a book study or even a Bible study. This is real life. This is hands-on. This is heart-connected, and it's changing lives. If you're tired of disconnection, and if you're longing for something more, don't just listen to these stories, become one. For more information, or to join our fall collabs starting in September, go to tableandwell.org/collabs. You were never meant to walk this journey alone. And your healing is part of how God is leaving his fingerprints in the transformation of the relational health of his family. Hello, and thank you for joining us today on the Table and Well podcast. We are in season 3. This is episode number 45 or 6 or somewhere in there. I'm not sure because they just kind of all come together. But we are in the middle of our series, Fingerprints, how God is transforming the relational health of his family. And we are so excited to have this couple with us today. We got to meet them at Transform back in Denver in April of this year, and we were able to hang out with them a little bit when we were in Michigan. And it's Geoff and Cyd Holsclaw. We're so glad that you guys are with us today. And I'm going to read your bio before we jump into this because you guys are doing a lot, and I think everyone needs to know what this is. So here we go. It says Geoff and Cyd Holsclaw are authors, pastors, the co-founders of the Center for Embodied Faith, and co-host of the Attaching to God podcast. So Cyd is also a spiritual director and a trauma-informed professional certified coach. Geoff is a visiting professor of theology at Western Theological Seminary. And together, they have co-authored Does God Really Like Me?, which was released, I believe, in 2020. And that talked about discovering the God who wants to be with you. And if my timing is correct, today, their new book launches, will be dropped, called Landscapes of the Soul, How the Science of Spirituality of Attachment Can Move You into Confident Faith, Courage, and Connection. That's a mouthful.
It is a mouthful. It is. It's a long one.
Did it.
But I did it.
You gotta blame our publisher. Our publisher was like, we're doing the long subtitle. We're like, okay.
All right. We're glad you guys are with us. Thank you for being here today.
Yes.
Yeah, it's fun to see you guys again.
Yeah, it's really great. And you guys, before we started recording, I was like, you guys were talking. I was like, that's exactly how Cyd and I are before podcasts too. So
Yeah.
it's good to be on the other end and seeing the couple at work. It's
Yes.
pretty funny.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what we enjoyed about hanging out with you guys too. We're like a couple in the midst of this as well together. And it definitely has its beauty and has its challenges. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
For sure. So in this series, we've been talking a lot to a lot of different people, and we've all started with the same question, because really what we're looking at is how are we seeing God's fingerprints, basically, in how he's transforming the relational health of his family. And so a question that we have for you guys is, what started you on this journey to relational health?
Relational dysfunction. probably.
You too?
Wow. Love
I
it.
mean, isn't that kind of how we all get started? Of the like, my life is not working. I think there must be a better way.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I
Yes.
think that's at least for me. I think that was my impetus was when Geoff and I were dating, things were intense. We're both fairly intense people. I think I knew I had relational issues even before Geoff and I started dating because I had just had a trail of unhealthy relationships before I was with Geoff. And actually had gotten to the point before I met Geoff that I was like, I can't be trusted. Like, I don't ever want to be in a relationship ever again because I just can't be trusted. I clearly don't know how to do this.
Wow.
And then Geoff came along and he was very persistent and very, very stable and didn't give up easily, even when I did that sort of push away, pull, push, pull. And so he stuck around long enough that sort of, the stuff that I used to sort of run away and hide from, or the way that I used to self-sabotage and sabotage relationships, none of it was really working on him. And so we ended up, joining our lives together. And then once, as anybody who has gotten married knows, once you actually live in each other's space and try to bring your lives together, you recognize just how many dysfunctional things you do and recognize just how difficult it can be to live at peace with someone else in your space. So I think that was the beginning of that sort of, And at the beginning of our relationship, I think I was very willing to believe it was all me. I was the one with all the issues, which made it feel like a very intense, like I have got to do all this work so that we can have a better relationship because it's all on me because I'm the one who's broken.
Wow.
So I'll let Geoff speak to what led him in, but that's what got me there was I'm broken.
Wow.
Wow. Yeah.
Well, so this, the science of attachment, especially in relationships, we'll often talk about the avoidant and anxious trap, which is not exactly what Cyd and I were, but kind of where my persistence and my not being annoyed or whatever Cyd kind of was saying was kind of the gift of my more avoidant attachment to our relationship short term, that I was just kind of like, could just kind of put up with things or whatever. And so it wasn't so much our marital relationship that for me was the kind of trigger for learning or growing into more kind of emotional health. It was more of like becoming like a dad and then kind of having that retroactive, like, oh, how was my dad to me? And then all of a sudden all these gaps, I guess other people would call them wounds, but I wasn't wounded.
No.
Definitely not.
No.
But all these kind of like lack of relational skills, maturity gaps started like really emerging. I was like, and as well as Cyd doing kind of the work for her. And I was like, oh, I have other work, but it's different. And so that's kind of where I think more of becoming like a dad was probably more of the impetus. And that was part of becoming a mom for you too, Cyd. That was part of like also the kind of unraveling of the emotional unhealth and the need for greater health.
Yeah.
What did you guys end up finding first or leaning into first? What was your first step?
I think
growth,
one of my first books was When People Are Big and God is Small. That's I don't know if you guys have read that one. I don't even remember who wrote it right now, but it's an old one. And that was sort of starting to tease out my people pleasing, a little bit of my codependent tendencies. I read Codependent No More, like working through some of that kind of stuff. Boundaries, of course, by Cloud and Townsend was big. So even just in me listing those books, you can tell what some of my issues was this sort of like, this prioritization of my relationships at the expense of my own health and agency. And so that was my work, was to really work through these books and be like, how do I actually remain like an individual human, rather than sort of like merge with all the people in my life. And so that's what my early reading was about. And then, things really shifted for me when I read Carl Lehman's Outsmarting Yourself. That was really when all of the sort of, that's when I made sense to myself. Right. So like up until then, I think it had been like, oh, I do that. And it just felt like more and more kicks in the gut of like, how did I end up this way? Like, oh, I was so ashamed that I had allowed myself to be codependent. It was sort of like this more beating down, feeling worse and worse about what I had allowed to perpetuate in my life. And then reading Outsmarting Yourself and learning about the pain processing pathway and how mine was incomplete in so many ways, and learning about relational circuits and, all the different thing and the verbal logical explainer, like all this stuff that he talks about, I was like, I make sense.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
Like the
which is a big
things that I
deal.
do are actually like, when you look at the life I've lived and my circumstances in my life, it makes so much sense that I am the way I am. And it took off that huge burden of like, it's all on me. It's all my fault. And instead it brought me to that place of like, oh, I actually make a lot of sense. And now that I understand that I make a lot of sense, it's like some of that like beating myself up began to diminish. And then I finally had the ability to like receive compassion from God in ways that I don't think I'd been able to before because it was all my fault.
Right now, so much of God's family is living disconnected. We've learned how to manage, perform, and survive. But we haven't been taught how to stay present, how to live from joy, or how to truly connect with God, ourselves, or each other. That's where you come in. At Table and Well, we're helping people rebuild what's been lost. We're guiding them back into life-giving connection, where joy is practiced, presence is possible, and relationships are restored. And when you give, especially as monthly supporters, you become part of this relational revival. You make it possible for someone to enter a space where it's normal to be seen, known, heard, and safe. Where community isn't just talked about, it's experienced. Where joy isn't the reward at the end of healing, it's the foundation we build from. As one participant said, not only do I have the tools to stay connected to myself and others in the middle of heavy and big emotions, I can. This is the kind of transformation your partnership makes possible. You have the opportunity to help restore the relational health of God's family, to develop healthy people who build safe communities where joy can be felt, received, and sustained. This doesn't happen by accident. It happens because people just like you say yes. Go to tableandwell.org/#give and become a monthly supporter today. Together, let's help the family of God become the safe and healthy family that we and the world both need. Yeah, that's actually really good, Cyd. If you hadn't said that, I was thinking that because my counselor, that was part of my journey too, because I thought that I was just broken. Like I should know how to do these things. And I remember when I finally was able to came to that point and my counselor looked at me and she's like, okay, well now you can actually receive God's grace and work because you were so worried about, you thought it was all you and you couldn't accept your own story and all those things. So you had no compassion for yourself. So you couldn't even open up for God to do anything, to have a spot in there. And I was like, yeah, so true. It's like,
And understanding is so powerful.
Yeah.
We as humans, it's one of those things that we really need. It's usually a key aspect. And for a lot of things, it's elusive. But I think what's so magical about all of this discovery that's happening in brain science is that we're beginning to understand.
Right.
We have some insight that we never had before.
And just the relief of like, I'm not completely insane and completely crazy. Like it actually makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That feels very different than why am I so broken and everybody else seems to be okay.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
For my journey, it was like sometime in college, I read Inside Out by Larry Crabb.
Okay.
I forget how I got a hold of that. Maybe my mom or I don't know what. I was I was studying philosophy, preparing for ministry. So I was like very much in the heady apologetics, defense of the faith, like kind of world. I love all that stuff. But I remember reading that book and like just having this realization, of like, oh, there's like a lot of depths to the soul and the psyche that I'm not like reflecting on or working on. very much. But then, of course, I just put that book aside for probably like 5 years or something because, we got married. I went to seminary, so I'm in graduate school for 3 years, full time doing all this. So I didn't have any of these other books. And, I wasn't the problem.
You weren't the problem.
Right. It was all me.
Cyd said it was all her. So you're like, sure.
Yeah. Cyd's doing all the work. She's reading the books. She's kind of updating me on whatever she's learning. And I'm like, okay, that's great for you. But like I said, after seminary, is right after that, I graduated. And then we also had our first son, So then those times of exploration, I have more time. I'm not just like in the work of studying. And so I'm able to kind of read and reflect on other things. So that's where that work started kind of, and in one sense, I kind of followed Cyd along with the things she was learning and then being like, oh, like I probably need to think about that in my life too, So I wasn't really trailblazing on the research at first. That kind of came a little bit later.
Okay. Yeah.
I think that's interesting and worth maybe chatting a little bit more about because we see this a lot in the work that we do where one spouse is realizing and recognizing like, oh, wait, I'm hungry to change. There's healing that's needed. And this tool feels like what's going to bring me hope. And then the other spouse is kind of clueless of all these new words that are being used and ideas that are being shared. And the spouse that's experiencing a lot of healing and change and transformation struggles to communicate well, like what all is different for them or maybe what they're beginning to learn. Do you guys want to talk to that at all? Because I think there's a pacing that ends up happening.
Yeah. Yeah, I know.
I'm like worried we're going to answer this differently.
But that's okay.
We will, which is the point.
We'll probably,
We have the relationship.
This is why you're supposed to be in the same room.
Yeah.
So you can write notes to each other.
Yeah.
No, actually, this is a good test, right? We have the relational maturity to be able to have different answers now, right?
Right.
Yes.
I think I felt really, because I was the one who was doing the work at the beginning and trying to share it with him. And I think because of my high prioritization of relationship, there were plenty of times when I would share something with him that I felt like I was learning and I was getting really excited about. And because of the way that his brain works and because of his focus on logical linear tools and reason and, that sort of defense of the faith stuff that he was so strong in, I think sometimes I came to him with these things that probably to him sounded like ooey, gooey, emotional, weird, like, I don't even know what you're talking about. And it felt tender and fragile to me because it was still growing and still healing. And I would share it with him. And rather than him being able to, because his relational health still needed to grow, rather than him being able to attune to me and say things like, wow, I can see that this is really making a difference for you, or I can tell you're really excited about this. I think his first response was sometimes, how do they make sense of that? Or where did they get that idea from? And then I would find myself not able to answer because it was more like I'm experiencing something, but I'm not remembering all of the ways that I got here. Like I'm notorious for I know that book changed my life, but I can't tell you how.
Right.
And so I think it was that kind of thing of trying to share my changes with him and him not really being able to offer attunement and excitement and affirmation for me in the way that I was craving it. Not that he wasn't able to offer any, but in the way that I was really craving it at that point because of my own sort of I'm still, enmeshing myself.
Yeah.
And I think maybe sometimes it was a little I don't like that idea. But I think most of the time it was kind of a mismatch of maybe learning styles, but then also relational strategies because Cyd was asking for the attunement or an emotional kind of thing. And what I was giving was out of my toolkit, which was, that I could see it's helpful for you. So now I'm curious about it. So now tell me more about where that idea came from or what it means. And I had asked these questions that she'd internalize as a criticism of this is not right. And I'm more of just tell me more. Or I'm curious, but I'm asking it on an intellectual side.
And not always prefacing it with tell me more or I'm curious.
No, definitely not.
He's
and I certainly wasn't connecting on the relational side and drawing out her experience of the information. I was just well, I want more information about it. So I think there was kind of like misses. And then other times, if I was like learning something that I felt was important, it'd come out in a very idea-y kind of way that that I think sometimes Cyd missed as an opportunity for me to connect with her. She'd just, be like, oh, more information. I don't need more information. I want your heart, Geoff. I'm like, I don't know how to share that. I'm sharing my brain. So that's what you get for now, because I don't know where the rest of it is.
Yeah. What has that journey been like for you then, Geoff, to shift? It sounds like for Cyd, that was a big piece of like her heart connection and heart experience. And it seems like you came along at some point and began to experience that too. What was that like? What was the shift?
Well, I mean, it definitely came through the mind, and so to hear more about like the mind and relational circuits and how you could be on or off and how you could kind of do that work and how important it was. And then connecting that to, just scripture and just being like, oh yeah, the Bible does talk this way. It's kind of, so I say I like left brained myself into my right brain. Or I took my analytic skills to convince myself of relational necessities. And so that over time, that started developing better communication with Cyd about how she was sharing herself or how I could share myself with her.
Yeah.
And then that definitely was all related also to like our parenting too. I think like the one kind of safe space for us was like parenting. So because Cyd would also before or after this would do like parenting stuff, like the Whole Brain Child with Dan Siegel or other things. So that was kind of like Switzerland. It's like, oh yeah, because no one's getting triggered. No one's judging each other. You're just kind of like, oh, this is how kids work. This is what they need at this time. And then it would kind of like trickle into,
oh, wait a minute.
Well, don't all people need this? Right. Don't all people function in similar ways? And are we right? So it was a little safer to kind of explore some of that material. But we definitely fell into some stereotypical ways of how we parent. And, I would come on in a certain way and Cyd would be a certain way. So we did fall into some of that too.
I think, I love that. That's awesome. But what I'm listening to you guys and I picked up some of this too when we had lunch together or dinner. That was dinner. But like literally, right brain, left brain. Like when we can fully access and we live out of both of that, then we're whole brained. And it was like Cyd was coming at everything from right brain relational, like we have to be connected in our heart and we have to, feel these things and navigate this. And Geoff feels like you're like, well, that's great, but like why and how do we get there? And how does that connect to this? And so I think the real beauty in that into like what you guys are even, how that really morphed itself into what you guys are doing now and having really strong leanings both ways, but then also, coming together. And now both of you are living in this really cool whole brain space where you can operate in your strengths, and truly understand why the other is super important and needed and being a whole person and your mind, body, soul, spirit, all of that. So that's exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
I would agree. And I would say that is definitely like a fingerprint of God right there, right? In that I used to, and I think this happens a lot for people, but it used to be like when we first got married, I felt myself constantly frustrated or disappointed or let down by Geoff's headiness and his like intellectualness and all that kind of stuff. And now at this point in our marriage, I'm like, I need your gifts. Can you please help me? Right. And so it's sort of like, you are so strong in these ways that I know that I am not as strong. And I think being married for 25 years, I have grown a lot in my ability to have more logical, linear tools and apply reason to situations. And I mean, I'm still much more relational and heart driven, but I think I'm a lot better at integrating the two, largely because of living with him as a mirror and him, getting deeper into his heart and being able to meet me. And so like coming together in those ways and now being able to have the best of both worlds that we can bring together into this shared work that we do.
Yeah.
is such a phenomenal gift that we couldn't have worked it out better ourselves if it had been up to us.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that.
For sure.
Yeah.
So much so that I refuse to work without Cyd on projects. She's like, I don't know. I was like when we were going to launch this doctoral program 2 years ago, I kind of had to talk Cyd into it. And I was kind of like, there's no way I'm going to do this without you. It would just be awful. It would just be
yeah.
And I think the students have really responded. They love to see us working together. And Cyd certainly created such a full relational environment that helps people feel at ease. And it's just it's really great.
Isn't that a gift God designed or something? He might have known something when.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love that. Opposites often attract, but we don't always get to see the benefit of that, right? We often spend so much of our energy bumping heads and trying to change the other person into ourselves that we end up using our energy there versus getting to really enjoy.
Or even wishing that the other person was not the way they are, even if we're not trying to change them, but being constantly disappointed or let down or, that's sort of oh, if only you were more, I know when we were first married, I spent a lot of time in that space of if only you were more, and I wouldn't even say it out loud, but in my head, it was if only he was more like this, then life would be better. It's no, life actually got a lot better when I could see him as he is and go, wow, you are fantastic the way that God made you. And if I can learn to love you the way you are, I will grow and benefit from that, and support you rather than wishing for something that's never why would you wish away this person that he's so fantastic. I'll just stop now.
I love it.
Blushing a little bit, Cyd.
Except for when I'm annoying.
And, that's part of our job as husbands, I think, sometimes. You've been listening to the Table and Well podcast. New episodes stream every Tuesday. If you have enjoyed this podcast, please leave us a review to let us know. Also, subscribe on your favorite listening platform to stay up to date on all things Table and Well. To learn more, start your journey, or get information on how Table and Well can help develop your community, family, or teams to be relationally healthy and authentically connected, please go to tableandwell.org/collab to schedule an interest call, or you can email us directly at known@tableandwell.org.